Hello everyone and welcome back. This segment of the video is dedicated to the oxygen family, which is kind of related to the nitrogen family also, and some of the topics are already discussed there. So let's start away. Oxygen family members are also known as chalcogens. That's a common name. Initially people used to call them chalcogens. The outermost configuration is NH2NP4. Oxygen sulfurs are non-metal. Selenium tellurium is metalloid. Polonium is a typical metal, but it is also radioactive. Half-life is 13.8 days. Livermorium is a synthetic radioactive element newly added in the periodic table. Atomic number 116, atomic mass 292, AMU you can say. Livermorium is the name, and valence shell configuration as usual, because it is NH2NP4. He is from 7th period, so 7s2 7p4. Now, radius top to bottom increases, but second period to third period there is a sudden jump in the radius. There is a sudden increase in the radius. So what happens? That simply means that all these elements are sufficiently big as compared to oxygen, because oxygen to sulfur there is a huge gap in radius. That means oxygen is exceptionally small. Second period elements are exceptionally very small as compared to third period element. So what happens when we talk about electron affinity? What is electron affinity? Electron affinity more means electron gain enthalpy more negative. That means more energy released on adding electron. Simplest, most elementary words, easy to add electron. Electron affinity means love for electron. So if the electron affinity is more, it's easy to add the electron. So what I'm saying, in the periodic table you might have read that the third period p block elements like sulfur, phosphorus, chlorine, they are from the third period of the p block. Their electron affinity, love for the electron, is higher than second period p block elements like oxygen, nitrogen and fluorine. Why so? Reason is very simple. As we have discussed, the size of second period elements, second period p block elements, if you are talking about, their size is exceptionally small. As a result, in the small 2p orbital, when the electron enters, there is a huge repulsion it will face because of the small size. Whereas in the 3p orbital, it's a bigger space. So if I am the electron, I have to enter into 3p and 2p. In 2p, I have lesser space and electrons are there, so here repulsions will happen. In 3p, I have a larger space to occupy. Even though the electrons are there, the repulsions I will feel lesser. Why? Because there is enough space for me as well as already present electrons also. So because of the small size of 2p orbital, lesser capacity of keeping the electron also, what happens? Their electron face more repulsion when entering inside. So the ease of adding the electron in the 2p, that means second period p block element, is lesser than third period p block element. Now this repulsion is not a small factor. You can understand, because of this repulsion, otherwise what happens? Electron affinity top to bottom decrease. But because of this repulsion, oxygen, who was supposed to be the topper, because it decreases, oxygen should have been the topper, he is now the last ranker. Similarly, nitrogen should have been the topper, he is also the last ranker. So you can understand repulsion is such a big factor that even oxygen and nitrogen, who were supposed to be toppers, are suddenly at the bottom most. Understood, bhaiya? Then question arises, sir, if repulsion is so much high, then for fluorine the repulsion should be even higher, na? Because sir, for fluorine the configuration is going to be P5. And if P5 configuration is there and there is just one space left, in P maximum 6 electrons can come. There is just one space left, so the repulsions are going to be extremely high. Then fluorine, if it is having so much of repulsion, then he should not be able to add the electron easily. His ease of adding electron or love for electron or electron affinity must be minimum. So for this I will tell you a very small story. You will understand very easily the logic also, plus the easier part to remember it also. So dekho yaar, think in this way. Electron went to nitrogen. He said, bro, can you please keep me? Nitrogen said, dekho bro, I have no problem in keeping you, but I already have 3 electrons in my p orbital, and if you enter they will repel. Also, I have a half-filled configuration. I don't want to disturb the half-filled configuration. So bro, sorry, I can't accept you. So electron felt bad. That means nitrogen has less love for electron. So here we can see nitrogen being least in the electron affinity. Electron then went to the oxygen, thinking that maybe oxygen can accept him. So he went to oxygen. So oxygen became a little bit angry. He said, bro, you just now came from nitrogen. He had 3 electrons in the p orbital. In total, nitrogen has 5 electrons in the last shell. I have 6. If he repelled you, how can I attract you here? So he said no, oxygen also said no electron, I cannot accept you because I also have here total 5 valence electrons in my last shell, 2 in s orbital, 2 in s orbital, s subshell, and 5 in the p subshell. So I'm sorry bro, it's not possible for me to get it through. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Total 6 electrons are there in the oxygen in the last shell, not 5, 6. Next, what happens? The electron this time prepares well. Very well prepared electron goes to fluorine. He says, bro, I need to talk to you. Fluorine says, what happened? Yeah, you can discuss. He says, yeah, bro, I think you should accept me and I can be easily added to your subshell, to your orbital. Fluorine became very angry. He said, are you crack? You went to nitrogen. Nitrogen had 5 electrons in the last shell. He repelled you. Hai na? Then you went to oxygen. He had 6 electrons in the last shell. He obviously repelled you. Now you are coming to me. I have 7 electrons in my last shell. Bhaiya, my electrons will repel you, will kick you out in the next vicinity. Electron said, bro, if you are done, can I speak? So Fluorine said, okay, fine, I'm done. I've said my point. Now I don't want to accept you anymore. Then electron says, ki, bro, you need me as much as I need you. So Fluorine says, how? He said, bro, if I would have gone to nitrogen, then bhaiya, I couldn't have given him anything. When I go to oxygen, I again couldn't give him anything. I can't give him anything. But you have 7 electrons in your last shell. If you take me, you will get the octet. So the deal is on the table. I can give you octet. You can accept me easily. So what happens? Even though repulsion is there, then why fluorine does not come at the last? Because at least the incoming electron is giving him octet. Some stability is coming. So yes, chlorine loves the electron more, but fluorine is not the bottommost in his group. Why? Because at least he gets the octet. And second period element, they love their octet. So you might be knowing this. Fluorine will be highly stable by getting the octet and he will stop reacting in that way, we can say. So what happens there? Fluorine, because he is getting octet, is the second ranker in the electron affinity. Why second ranker? Why not first? Because repulsions are still there. Don't forget the repulsion part. But oxygen, nitrogen, they go to the bottommost of their respective groups because of repulsion. Talking about ionization enthalpy, top to bottom decreases as usual, no exceptional part here. But a little revision of the periodic table, that ionization enthalpy of this family, that is oxygen family, will be lesser than the ionization enthalpy of nitrogen family. That means 16th group ionization enthalpy will be lesser than 15th group ionization enthalpy of corresponding elements. Why? Because in the 15th group you get a half-filled configuration. So from the half-filled configuration it becomes very tough to remove the electron. So here we need more energy to ionize it. Whereas in the case of P4 is very happy if you take his electron away. Why? Because if you take the electron away, if you ionize him, he will get a half-filled configuration. So here he is getting a half-filled configuration by releasing electron and he is losing the half-filled configuration by releasing electron. So obviously here you need more energy to release his electron. He is not willing to release. Here you need lesser energy because he will happily release the electron. What happens next? Density top to bottom increases, clear cut electronegativity decreases, there also no problem. As usual, normal orders are there. Boiling point, melting point also increases without any exception. There also we can say melting point, boiling point increases. Now, one very important thing, that when you go from O2 to S8, that means oxygen to sulfur, also when you go from nitrogen and phosphorus, you will see very abnormal thing happening there. Understand, oxygen is a gas. Sulfur is a solid, nitrogen is a gas, phosphorus is a solid. There is no liquid in between them. Nitrogen is a gas, phosphorus solid, oxygen is a gas, sulfur solid. Also, there is a sudden jump in their boiling points. Both of them have a sudden jump in their boiling points. Now the question arises, why they will have a sudden jump, sudden very high increase will be there in their boiling points? What would be the reason for it? So bhaiya, the reason of this sudden jump, the reason is in very simple single word, atomicity. Sir, atomicity means what? Simple. Sulfur atom as well as phosphorus atom, same logic I will apply for both. Sulfur atom as well as phosphorus atom, we can say, are larger in size than oxygen, but are not so much large that one becomes gas, the other becomes solid. Whereas, if you see the number of atoms in their molecule, oxygen and nitrogen have only two atoms. Atomicity means number of atoms in the molecule. Atomicity only 2. and here the atomicity is S8 and P4. So big sulfur, 8 of them come together. So the acid structure is very big. And whereas O2, lallu 2 is small, O come together, O2 is very small. So S8 will have huge force of van der Waals force of attraction. So huge force of attraction, huge boiling point. As a result, bhaiya, he becomes solid also because of that attraction. Same thing happens with phosphorus also. That in the case of phosphorus as well, there are 4 big phosphorus atom coming together, and nitrogen only 2 little nitrogen coming together. So P4 and S8 have very high van der Waals force of attraction, very high van der Waals force of attraction. Van der Waals force of attraction depends upon size. So here they have very high size, very high attraction. That's why there is a sudden jump in their boiling point also, and suddenly O2 is a gas and S8 is a solid, N2 is a gas and P4 is a solid. Question arises कि sir, will this thing happen with fluorine and chlorine also? Answer is no. In fluorine chlorine this thing will not happen. Why? Because for fluorine and chlorine, F2 and Cl2 both are diatomic. So there is not a sudden increase in the size. There is not a very drastic increase. Little bit jump is there, but enormously high van der Waals force of attraction will not be here. So they both are gases only. So we have to understand here कि भैया, here the atomicity is the main reason of having a sudden jump in the boiling point. For O2S8 also, for N2P4 also. Going ahead, -2 stability decreases, just like in the nitrogen family, -3 stability was decreasing. Why? From here to here, you can see non-metal and metal. So metallic character is increasing. So metallic character increasing means tendency of showing -2 oxidation state. Negative oxidation states are majorly shown by non-metal. So stability of -2 will decrease, whereas they will start showing +4 and +6. Inert pair effect we very well know. If this 4 electron participate in bonding, +4. If all of them participate, +6. And the stability of the lower oxidation state increases from top to bottom. That is inert pair effect. So +4 stability increases. Going ahead here, talking about their hydrides, very simple. Water is again sp3 hybridized, bond angle around 104 degree, around 104.5 something. H2S2 H2PO, just like PH3, ESH3, SbH3, BiH3, just like that. Here also the bond angle is comparable to 90 degree. We can't say a clear-cut hybridization, but if they forcefully ask, nahi bhaiya, you have to tell one hybridization, then sp3 will be the answer. But in reality, their bond angles are around 90 degree. And yes, bond angle decreases as you go from top to bottom without any problem. But water is a clear-cut sp3 with 2 lone pairs. So bond angle close to 109 and remaining are close to 90 degree, just like PH3, ASH3, SbH3, BiH3. Going ahead, top to bottom size increase. So bond length increases. Bond length increase, so it becomes easy to break the bond. So bond enthalpy or bond dissociation enthalpy decreases. Bond is easily breaking, so the stability decreases. On breaking the bond, they can release hydrogen. So if they release H+, we can understand acidic nature increases. Why? As you go from H2S to H2PO, it is becoming easier for them to break the H and giving the H+. So the acidic nature increase. As well as it is becoming easier to break the H and give the H-, that is reducing agent nature. So if there is a hydrogen donor, reducing agent. If there is a H+ donor, acid. So both characters increase because breaking the bond is becoming easy. H as well as H+ donation both is becoming easier. Here, water does not act like a reducing agent because the breaking of the H2O bond in such a way that H- goes out is very tough. So in simple words, where you go from here to there, top to bottom, reducing agent nature increases, acidic nature increases, both because of the same reason. Breaking the bond is becoming easier. Talking about oxides, there are 2 kinds of oxide, EO2, EO3, like SO2, SO3, SO2, SO3, sulfur dioxide, sulfur trioxide. Same way, ozone, SO2 are gases. SeO2 is not liquid. SeO2 is solid. Reducing agent nature here, top to bottom. Reducing agent nature of this oxide decreases such that SO2 majorly act like a reducing agent. There is one reaction in surface chemistry where he can act like a oxidizing agent also, but in your course it is acting like a reducing agent in this group. Whereas TeO2 prefer to show oxidizing agent tendency. So you can understand reducing agent nature is decreasing such that TeO2 is majorly oxidizing agent, SO2 is majorly reducing agent. Even though SO2 can act like both reducing as well as oxidizing agent. Going ahead, talking about their halides here, EFN. So we can get, for example, SF4. Are you able to get it? SF4, SF6. This kind of many compounds are possible. So monohalide, dihalide, tetrahalide, hexahalide, all of them are possible. So whatever you take, fluorides will be more stable than chlorides, than bromides, than iodides. So basically this kind of a stability order is followed always. That means SF6 is always more stable than HCl6, always. Same way we can take TE also. TeF6 is more stable than TeCl6, or TeF4 more stable than TeCl4, and so on. Also in the hexahalides, only hexafluorides are stable. Why? Arey bhai sahab, if you want to arrange 6 people around a central atom, so small people you can arrange, like small fluorine you can arrange. Fluorine is very small. You can arrange him, steric hindrance won't be much. But bhaiya, when you take big chlorine, they will start kicking away each other, causing a lot of steric hindrance, and they will be unstable. So only hexafluorides are stable, and they all are gaseous in nature. Simplest example, SF6. Talking about tetrahalides, SF4 is a gas, SeF4 is a liquid, TeF4 is a solid. Simple logic, as you go from top to bottom, sulfur, selenium, tellurium, size increases, size more, attraction more, boiling point more. Same logic that we used here. So as the size increases, attraction increases and boiling point also increases. That's the most basic logic in chemistry. If you are weak in this logic, write it down 10 times, mug it up. It's a very important logic used in a lot of chapters. Going ahead, oxygen does not form dichloride, dibromide as per the latest NCERT. Older NCERT had something else. Older NCERT had selenium, but new NCERT is saying that oxygen does not form dichloride, dibromide. Ac2Cl2 is not a dichloride. Ac2Cl2 is a dimer of monohalide or monochloride. Dimer means it was AcCl, it is existing like Ac2Cl2. On heating Ac2Cl2, it disproportionate to form AcCl4 and Ac. So plus 1 oxidation state disproportionate to plus 4 and 0. So bhaiya, what happens here? Monohalide on heating disproportionate. Dihalide, oxygen does not form dichloride, dibromide. Tetrahalide, only one thing you have to remember, that bhaiya, first one is gas, then liquid, then solid. Hexahalide, only hexafluorides are known and all of them are gases. That's the stability order. Clear cut, you will get statement type question from here very easily. So this was about the basic physical and chemical property. Let's go on to the compounds now. So boiling point of water versus HF, the boiling point of water is more. What happens if we compare the FH ... F and OH ... O? These are two hydrogen bonding. So this hydrogen bonding is stronger, but still the boiling point of water is more than HF. Why? Because water can show per molecule 4 hydrogen bonds and HF shows per molecule only 2 hydrogen bonds. So water has a higher boiling point. Why? Because more number of hydrogen bondings are there per molecule. Talking about O2 preparation here, take any higher oxosalt. What is oxosalt? A salt containing oxygen. So like KClO3, KMNO4, they are at a very high oxidation state, having a lot of oxygen. So when you heat them, O2 gas comes out. Similarly, PbO2, Pb3O4, you might be knowing this from the inert pair effect, that lead plus 2 is more stable. So because of inert pair effect, lead plus 2 is more stable, thallium plus 1 is more stable. In same way, now PbO2, Pb3O4, they are in the higher oxidation state. On heating, PbO comes out, which is more stable due to inert pair effect, and O2 gas is released. Remember, less reactive metal oxides also on heating gives metal and oxygen gas. How to remember less reactive metal oxide? Remember HAPA. HAPA is Hg, Ag, Pt, Pd, Au. Hg, Ag, Pt, Pd, Au. In almost every lecture this HAPA comes. So it's a very important thing. How do we really prepare in the labs and in the industries? H2O2 is taken with MnO2 as a catalyst or finely divided metals. Very rapidly it will break to form water and O2. One method. Fractional distillation of air, we know in the air we have majorly nitrogen and oxygen. So on fractional distillation we can make nitrogen as well as oxygen gas. Now O2 doesn't react directly with, so देखो यार reaction of O2 I'm not writing here. Why? Very commonly everyone can write here. Any element with O2 form their oxide, like aluminium plus O2 Al2O3, zinc plus O2 ZnO, CH4, any hydrocarbon plus O2 like CH4, C2H2, C2H4, anyone like that with oxygen form CO2 and water. All these are common reactions. तो भैया O2 does not react with whom? O2 does not react with only least reactive metals. Here the example will be platinum. Sir, how to remember the least reactive metal? Simple, Happa. Out of Happa with Ag he reacts. After Ag, Pt, Pd, Au with platinum, palladium and gold, oxygen does not react directly to form their oxides. Going ahead, metal oxides are basic in nature. Why? Because when you dissolve a metal oxide in water, you get hydroxide. So like Na2O in water, NaOH, calcium oxide in water, calcium hydroxide. Non-metal oxides are acidic. So when you dissolve non-metal oxide in water, you will get acid, and such acids are called oxyacid. Why? Or oxoacid. Why? Because they contain oxygen also. So like SO2 goes in water, H2SO3. SO3 goes in water, H2SO4. In the last chapter, we saw P4O10 going in water, H3PO4. P4O6 going in water, H3PO3. Similarly, N2O5 goes in water, N2O5 goes in water, HNO3. N2O3 goes in water, HNO2. That's why we say N2O5 is anhydride of HNO3 and N2O3 is anhydride of HNO2. And to match also, oxidation state should be same here. So bhaiya, this is what we can say, that non-metal oxide go in water to form oxyacids. What about the higher oxidation metal oxide? So understand, if the oxidation state increases, the acidic nature of oxide as well as oxyacid will increase. So higher oxidation state, more acidic in nature. So some metal oxides which are in very high oxidation state like +6, +7, example Mn2O7 CrO3, sometime +5 also like V2O5, they are in so high oxidation state that bhaiya two factors are fighting and oxidation state wins there. So metal oxides are generally basic in nature, but if the oxidation state is very high, then it can become acidic also. So like in +5, it is acidic amphoteric. He can act like acidic basic both, but more he likes to be acidic in nature, V2O5. Mn2O7 CrO3 are in +7 and +6, they are completely acidic in nature. Going ahead, ozone. Ozone, one reaction is there. Ozone reacts with mercury and it causes tailing of mercury, and one compound is formed, that I can write here, that ozone with mercury forms Hg2O, and this causes tailing of mercury. Now this question is no more in the NEET syllabus as per the NCERT, so it's not much important, so I'm just writing it here. If you want to remember, you can. Otherwise, let's focus upon the NCERT part. O2 becomes O3. So 3O2 becomes 2O3. This reaction is endothermic. Delta H is positive and delta S is negative. Now it's a very nice scientific logic if you understand from thermodynamics. Delta G is delta H minus T delta S. Delta H is positive. Delta S is also negative. Why? From 3 gas, you are getting 2 gas. So the randomness is decreasing. 3 gases are becoming 2 gas, randomness decrease, entropy change is negative. So delta S is negative. So minus T delta S is positive. So if delta H is also positive, minus T delta S is also positive. So delta G will always be positive. And delta G always positive means this conversion is always non-spontaneous. That means O2 to O3 is always non-spontaneous reaction. So bhaiya, non-spontaneous reaction means what? It will not happen on its own. You have to give some external energy. Now, the first thing which comes to the brain, sir, external energy, can we heat it? Don't heat. Heat should never be used. Why? Listen carefully and understand. Ozone is thermodynamically less stable. O2 is thermodynamically more stable. So when you heat, what will happen? After heating, the vessel remain hot only. Because of that extra heat which you gave, or because of the heat that you have given, because O3 is less stable, he will break again to form O2. Understood bhaiya? So heat is not a good idea. What we should do? We should give silent electric discharge. If you give a shock, O2 becomes O3, khatam. The shock does not remain there. For example, if I put my finger in the electric switch, I don't want to do that, but just to explain hypothetically, I put my finger in the electric switch, I will get a shock. If I remove my finger, bhaiya, it's not possible that I will be having the shock after that also. Whereas if I touch a hot vessel, after removing hand also, my hand will still be hot. So heat always, some heat is always left. That leftover heat, which is the residual heat, which because of heating the vessel, you remove the Bunsen burner, but suddenly the vessel will not become cool. Na? So the leftover heat will break ozone back to O2. We don't want that. That's why we always use silent electric discharge. This conversion is very less. Maximum 10% conversion happens. So the mixture is little bit ozone and a lot of O2, which is known as ozonized oxygen. We call that thing as ozonized oxygen. Ozonized oxygen means majorly oxygen only, but some of the oxygen got converted to ozone. Reaction. Ozone in your course is the second best oxidizing agent after fluorine in your course. So bhaiya PbS become PbSO4. From sulfur from -2 got oxidized to highest +6. Only two reactions are in your course of ozone. PbS become PbSO4 from black to white. Second reaction, I minus at a pH of 9.2. Who will maintain the pH? Borate buffer. It becomes I2 and again O2 gas is released. In both cases O2 gases are released. So I minus becomes I2 releasing O2 gas. So bhaiya, we understand this thing. These two reactions only we have to remember, and the second reaction occurs exactly at a constant pH of 9.2 and making constant by borate buffer. NO is a gas which is released by supersonic jet, and it's a very chadda gas. Why? Because this NO gas, supersonic jet fly up in the air. It does not go inside water. So it's flying up in the air. So what happens? When it is flying up in the air releasing NO gas, NO reacts with the ozone layer on the top of the earth and it will degrade the ozone layer. So we say supersonic jets are also responsible for the depletion of ozone layer. This also can be used as a test of ozone. How? You might have read about iodometric titration, iodimetric titration. So iodine based titration you can do. So the amount of iodine can be estimated by the reaction with Na2S2O3, which is hypo. So if you don't know this thing, it's all right. You can read the redox chapter. But this is the reaction which is used, Na2S4O6 and NaI. This is the reaction which is used to test the iodine amount. And once you get from hypo, you get the amount of iodine, and from amount of iodine, you get the amount of ozone. So quantitative estimation of ozone also this method is used. Carrying on, allotropes of sulfur here. There are two major allotropes of sulfur, rhombic sulfur and monoclinic sulfur. How to make rhombic sulfur? We take roll sulfur, we heat it, becomes rhombic sulfur. Then take rhombic sulfur in a dish, heat it, let it cool down, make some hole, pour the extra liquid out, remove the upper crust, some needle-like beta sulfur will come. All that story is there in the NCERT, which I just now spoke. You can rewind and check again also each and every line I have said. But what is the major thing that comes? Rhombic sulfur is more stable than monoclinic sulfur. One thing, density of rhombic is more than monoclinic and melting point opposite. So understand, just remember one of them. So you can remember stability. So stability alpha more than beta, rhombic more than monoclinic, same order for density, melting point opposite order. Going ahead, both alpha and beta sulfur, both rhombics and monoclinic are S8. Both are crown shape, S8 kind of structure. This is how the crown shape structure will look like here. These are all sulfur. Here, on heating it becomes S6. S6 is chair form of sulfur. S. On further heating to around 1000 Kelvin, we get S2. S2 is paramagnetic just like O2. What happens in the case of S2? In the case of S2, there are two unpaired electrons in pi star anti-bonding electrons. So in the pi anti-bonding electron, pi star orbitals, we have one unpaired electron each, just like oxygen in MOT. Next, talking about SO2, how to get SO2? Just burn sulfur. When you burn sulfur, around 92 to 94% is SO2 and only 6 to 8% is SO3 gas. Or you can take SO3 minus with H plus. So you understand कि H2SO3 is made with SO2 plus water. So if I give H2SO3 a little bit higher temperature, he will break to form SO2 and water. So SO3 minus, little bit H plus added, H2SO3 is made. है ना भैया? And that H2SO3 break to form H2O plus SO2. Second method. You might have remembered this thing also, that H2CO3 is also unstable. H2CO3 also, if you take H2CO3, it will also break to form H2O plus CO2 happily. So we can understand H2CO3, H2SO3 are behaving in the same way. They both are unstable. So they both break on little bit of heating also. Even in the room temperature also, they will evolve CO2 and SO2 gas. Next, FeS2, any sulfide ore in metallurgy we have read on roasting, SO2 gas comes out, and this SO2 gas is used for the preparation of sulfuric acid also, which is the next topic. Next, Na2CO3, Na2SO3, NaHSO3 salts are there, just like carbon dioxide also. CO2 also makes two salt. CO2 makes a acid H2CO3, and there are two salts, Na2CO3 and NaHCO3. In the same way, SO2 also forms the two types of salt. So we can understand that CO2 and SO2 behave in the similar way. They both are weak acids. They both form two types of salt. They both in their carbonic acid or sulfurous acid, both of them release SO2 and CO2 gases. Now talking about SO2 here, remember in the previous slide I have talked about SO2 is majorly a reducing agent. So these are the three reactions only in your course. Fe3 plus became 2 plus. That's the only good reaction he does. Fe3 plus reduced to 2 plus. SO2 does that. MnO4 minus becomes Mn2 plus. This is a reaction of MnO4 minus. MnO4 minus is very good oxidizing agent. He forces SO2 to act like a reducing agent. So MnO4 minus oxidizes SO2 to form what is a byproduct. The byproduct here in this case SO2 is acting like a reducing agent only. And when SO2 acts like a reducing agent, the byproduct is sulfate, SO4 2 minus. So sulfur from plus 4 get oxidized to plus 6, and he reduces only two people, Fe3 plus to 2 plus and MnO4 minus to Mn2 plus. Can this reaction occur with K2Cr2O7 also? Higher. K2Cr2O7 and KMnO4 both are very good oxidizing agent. They will easily oxidize SO2. Sir, what about this reaction? Understand, SO2 is anti-chlor. It is used to eat extra chlorine present anywhere. So that's the reaction in front of you. SO2 react with chlorine directly to form SO2Cl2, and this happens in the presence of charcoal. If you remember SO2Cl2 with P4, remember this reaction. If not, try to recall. SO2Cl2 with P4 forms PCl5. So they can mix these two reactions and also they can ask you. So in a very short, I have revised very quick all the things here. You can see the notes. These are something which you can very easily prepare. Very slight things I have used, and from here only we are expecting to get a question in the NEET exam also. Let's carry on. So let us talk about the oxy acids of this group, especially sulfur. So SO2 goes in water. SO2 sulfur is in plus 4, so he will form the oxy acid in the plus 4 oxidation state only, that is sulfurous acid. The higher oxidation state is called sulfuric acid, that is plus 6. So SO2 goes in water, H2SO3 formed. SO3 goes in water, plus 6 goes in water, plus 6 oxy acid formed. Who is more acidic? Obviously higher oxidation state, more acidic. So acidic character of H2SO4 obviously will be more than H2SO3. Talking about the structure here, same logic. You put one double bond O and remaining two oxygen put at single bond. Give one hydrogen to each, and sulfur will get one lone pair also, because total it has 6 electrons in the last shell. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 bonds made. Out of 6 electrons, 4 involved in the bonding, one lone pair left. Going ahead, in sulfuric acid again I made double bond O and 3 single bond O made, because total 4 oxygen. 2 hydrogen came. Now what to do? The leftover oxygen who did not get any hydrogen will be given a double bond. And as you can see, sulfur has 6 electrons in the last shell. He is making all the 6 bonds, so no need of any lone pair. Going ahead, ortho plus ortho minus water. I told in the previous video also, ortho plus ortho minus water is pyro. These are ortho acid. So sulfuric acid plus sulfuric acid minus water. So 2 plus 2, 4. 4 minus 2, 2. S2. 4 plus 4, 8 minus 1 oxygen, 7. So this is called as oleum or pyrosulfuric acid. Sometimes it is also called as disulfuric acid also, because there are 2 sulfuric acid mixed here. Structure very simple. 2 OH will come together, water will be released, or simple shortcut. Odd oxygen put in the middle, 2 sulfur in the corners, and as it is double bond O, OH, double bond O, OH. Same way you can make like this. In peroxodisulfuric acid, we understand this is disulfuric acid, this is peroxodisulfuric acid. So the oxygen comes in the middle here. So 2 oxygen comes here. This is a peroxy bond. This is known as Marshall's acid. This preparation of the Marshall's acid you have seen when you take 50% H2SO4 with mercury, for example, electrode of very high current density if you take and you take H2SO4 at 50% concentration, you get S2OA2 minus, and that S2OA2 minus on hydrolysis gives you H2SO5. This further on hydrolysis gives you H2SO5. You can see the structure of H2SO5 also. This is known as Carose acid. This is peroxosulfuric acid. Just like sulfuric acid, one OO bond came here, so peroxosulfuric acid. And peroxosulfuric acid on further hydrolysis gives you H2O2. So in the preparation of hydrogen peroxide, you have seen that we take 50% H2SO4, we use the electrolytic oxidation there, and we get this structure. That is peroxodisulfuric acid, known as Marshall's acid, which on hydrolysis gives normal Carose acid, and Carose acid will further give you H2O2. Going ahead, this shortcut is of thionic acid series. So as double bond O, OH, just like this. Double bond O, OH. Here also double bond O, OH, but in the middle, instead of O, there is a sulfur there. Example, देखो यार, di-tri-tetra is not dependent upon this number of sulfur in the middle. It depends upon total sulfur. So if you take dithionic acid, so the simple thing is there should be 2 sulfur here. So H2S2O6, that's the structure. Here the value of n equal to 0, total 2 sulfurs are there, dithionic acid. If you see all this structure, one common thing you will get here. In all cases, the acidic hydrogen are 2 and the hybridization is always sp3. You can check in every single case, hybridization is sp3 and acidic hydrogens are 2, basicity is 2. How to get sulfuric acid? Contact process, take any sulfide ore, do roasting, you will get SO2 gas. SO2 with half O2 in the presence of V2O5 as a catalyst, we get SO3. This reaction is exothermic. Also, here you have 1.5 moles, 1.5 moles, and here you have only 1 mole. So, as per Lee-Chatelier principle, just like we did in the Haber process also, same way. Exothermic, what should happen? If I lower temperature, reaction will go towards exothermic direction as per Lee-Chatelier principle. But at a very low temperature, what happens? The reactivity becomes very less. So we take moderate temperature of around 700 Kelvin, okay reactivity, okay percent yield. Then 1.5 moles here, 1 mole here. So you want to go towards lesser number of moles, you want to compress it. So at high pressure, reaction goes towards lesser number of moles. So we take around 2 bar of the pressure. So the optimum yield of sulfuric acid if you want. So second step is the key step. If this step is going more towards the right side, more sulfuric acid will be produced. So the optimum condition is 2 bar, 700 Kelvin. Then the SO3 produced is added to H2SO4. Why? If you add directly SO3 in water, a lot of energy is released. We don't want that to happen. So we dissolve it in H2SO4. What will happen? You get oleum H2S2O7, which on hydrolysis will give you 2 H2SO4. So the one you added you got, plus 1 extra H2SO4 also came. Here, arsenic impurities are also there. So for purifying that impurity, we use gelatinous ferric hydroxide in the contact process. Going ahead, for any dibasic acid like H2SO4, H2CO3, H2A, Ka1 is much more than Ka2. So it's not an exception here also, very simple. MX like NaF, CaF2, NaCl, CaCl2, NaNO3, KNO3, they react with H2SO4. What happens? You get HF, HCl, HNO3. So this can be the preparation method of HF, HCl, HNO3 also. Then we know concentrated H2SO4 is a dehydrating agent. Water goes out. So think about it. How many water can you release from here? So I feel H2O 11 can come out. So 11 H2O will come out. What is left? Only carbon is left. So black color. If you heat sugar, you might have seen at your home also. If you forget, you heat sugar and you forget it, it will become black coating in the saucepan where you are heating it. That black coating is of carbon. All the dehydration have occurred, and this process is known as charring of sugar. Charring. So reaction number 1, to get HFSCl HNO3, easily you can remember, simple H plus has to be given, exchange of ions. Second, dehydration. Third, H2SO4 is also oxidizing agent. Good or bad? Okay, not very good, not very bad also. In fact, I can tell you that oxidizing agent nature of HNO3 more than H2SO4, more than H3PO4. So it's weaker than HNO3 but better than H3PO4 in the oxidizing agent nature. So he oxidizes copper to copper sulfate. H2SO4 on reduction release SO2 gas. So very nice thing to remember. H2SO4 reduced to form SO2, SO2 oxidized to form SO4 2 minus. So here copper with H2SO4 oxidized to form CuSO4 whole twice. Sulfur, now it's very tricky part. Sulfur get oxidized to SO2, H2SO4 get reduced to SO2, so both are forming SO2 only. So only one gaseous product comes out there. Whereas carbon on oxidation we very well know forms H2CO3, and because H2CO3 multiple times I have said is unstable, it will break to form H2O plus CO2, and sulfuric acid himself will form SO2. So two gaseous products come out in this reaction. So if they ask you in which of the following reaction two gaseous products are released, so carbon with H2SO4 will also release two gaseous product. Just like carbon with HNO3 also, there also NO2 and CO2 was coming out. So this was about this chapter. Next part of the video I'll be discussing the 17th and the 18th group, maybe together. Make sure that you read the NCERT very well for this chapter. I have done my part by concising all the things together, but again complement this video by reading the NCERT also, and you will get very good rank and very good marks in the NEET examination of 2020. Thank you.